Google has announced by 2029, with what they call the doctrine of singularity, they're going to be fused the human mind with artificial intelligence. In other words, AI is going to basically be running everything in our lives. You wonder why you go get so-called things on your phone, what you say and what you do. And can you say, well, how does an artificial intelligence creature view human beings? As data bits. They can be erased. Let me punch this button here. You are erased. That can happen. That's going to happen. You're going to wonder why someone's at your door, a cop, because you say the wrong word. I would say this: as you end your life, do you want to go out watching some blabbing head, or would you want to go out maybe in trouble for taking a stand for freedom and for your children? If you care about your grandchildren, your children, you get up off your butts and do something.
Welcome back to Liberty and Finance and Reluctant Preppers. We have a returning guest. John Whitehead is the founder and president of the Rutherford Institute. He's a constitutional attorney who argues cases on behalf of individuals facing encroachments against their constitutional liberties. He joins us this Wednesday, August 20th, 2020. John, thanks for joining us again.
Hey, thanks for having me on, sir.
We saw an article that you had posted on LinkedIn. This is America, where fascism, totalitarianism, and militarism go hand in hand. The thing that leapt out to me about that article was not so much the general topic, because it's one you've treated before, and you've even visited here several times to talk about martial law and that sort of thing, but the specific slant that you took in the article, which I thought was perceptive and absolutely necessary for us to talk about, is how the divisiveness of ourselves as a people, we the people, being sort of herded off into these different groups that we're starting to clash with each other, then invites an escalation of intervention that actually results in either destruction of civil breakdown and also imposition of totalitarian control. And it all stems from this basic underlying, I guess, weakness we have as people of tribalism or whatever, that we seem to be vulnerable to having that key played on our little emotional pianos. But I think that your take on that is going to be very important to us to realize that we need to be wary of not falling into that pitfall, because it really is a trap that leads us. We think we're going to be standing up for our group or whatever. What we end up is we all lose. So can you kind of bring us to what incited you to take this particular topic up at this time and lead us into what you think is the most important points we need to talk about?
Well, especially with the COVID, all the things we've seen, the riots, what's happened to us as a people is we're being divided and further divided and further divided. We're moving into a virtual reality in many ways. With schooling being virtual, people are not going outside. I happen to be what might be called a compulsive walker. I like to walk around my neighborhood, take exercise and things like that. Nobody comes outside anymore, not even with their dogs in a lot of places. So we've been forced inside where we're going to be staring at mainstream media. People are saying to me now they told me I'm going to be glued to my television set for the next 3 months for this election, and I'm going, why would you be glued to your television set for 3 months for an election that's going to be run by the same entity, the so-called deep state, which is obvious. And so, I mean, wake up, folks. Understand your government. Go to our website at rutherford.org. I write on this stuff all the time. This is confirmed by credible sources. I mean, the FBI leaked the memo, basically, or it was leaked, saying that there's a seventh floor group called the Deep State that basically ran the government. And it's the corporate elite and all the people that have always been running government in America, especially since after World War II, which is another subject. But divide and conquer, it does work. And you can control people. You can force them to stare at their TV sets, not be involved in their local community, where they think that voting is the most important thing you can do. And I've often used the phrase, voting can be something that slaves do. If you're voting for two candidates, listen, you have a country of 350 million people, and 350 million people, and we get two basic people with empty brains to vote for. What does that say? That we're moving into an idiocracy if we fall for this stuff. So I'm trying to tell people, don't fall for this stuff. Listen, when I go to the drugstore to get a cold medicine, I have 20 choices. When I vote for president, I have what you might call two choices, but when I look at it, it's not a choice for me. So, and I don't believe in voting for the lesser of two evils. I think that's really stupid. That's just a way to say, oh, I give up. I'll let them run the show. I'll go home and I won't do anything about it. So, what they want people to do is to sit on their butts and not act. Martin Luther King said it best, and he warned African Americans early on. He said, don't get into the violent thing, man. It ain't going to work for you in the end. It's going to create more division, more hate, and we're seeing that today. Same with the people on the other side, the other races, or whatever you want to call them. I don't believe in race, by the way. There's one race, the human race. We may be of different color. All this race stuff is another thing used to divide us. It's just a sham. Listen, we all have two legs, two ears, two eyes, one nose, 5 fingers, 10 toes. You go down the list, and no matter what race you are. So there is just this one people here. And this one people can be a lot freer if this one people will stand up to those who are aggressive and nasty and mean, that have the guns that'll blow you away in 2 seconds and things like that. So that's what I'm warning people against. I've seen it. Listen, I've been practicing law for over 40 years. I've sued in and out of Washington, D.C. I've sued the president. I've seen how Washington, D.C. works. I see how this country works. And what we're moving into now, just to make, we may want to talk about this, is the country is moving very, I would call it nationalized. The police are going to become nationalized. People don't realize this, but there are 175,000 federal agents in America roaming around this country with hollow point bullets ready to go when the time comes. And they prepare early. It was interesting that early October 2019, Brigadier General Daniel Shipley of the Pentagon issued an order getting the Marines ready for possible division in the country and to activate it and getting the Marines ready to operate. And it doesn't make a lot of sense because there was no protest at that time. There was no COVID. What is the deal here? And the other thing that we have to be careful about is who's running the show. Back in the 1960s, and I've written on this, back in the 1960s, I first saw this when the FBI would infiltrate hippie groups, grow their hair long, smoke weed with them, hang out with them, and then turn them in or get them to do things that were crazy. The government does infiltrate groups. They've done it. They do a very good job of that. All you got to do, folks, is a little research, and you will see this. This is not conspiracy theory stuff. And we have, again, like say, since World War II, we've been under the cusp of something that's really, really basically I'd call evil. If you know about Project Paperclip, when all the Nazis were brought in this country, the scientists, Reinhard Gehlen, one of Hitler's chief intelligence guys, set up the NSA and CIA. People don't read between the lines, folks, who's running this show. And I talked to former NSA agents that said that inside the government, or in the early days, they would talk to people who worked for the American government, agents that only spoke German. So, I mean, those are all theories. You can say they're theories, but Project Paperclip is not a theory. It's a fact. So I think there are forces in government that want control. They want money. They want to make sure that we're going to be idiots, that we're going to be burning a house, smashing a window in Minneapolis or Portland. And the police may run and hide in certain situations, and I've seen that recently. But they're going to be police, but they're going to be in camouflage outfits, jumping out of trucks and tanks with their guns and stuff ready to go. And they're going to take control. The country's been ready for this for a long time. Like I said, when you have the Brigadier General last October getting the Marines ready, they were thinking about something. What were they thinking about? I mean, why would he do that? Did he just one day have an itch and say, oh, let's get the Marines ready? These people calculate very, very well because they want to maintain control. And they don't have a very good view of we the people. That's the bottom line.
I was speaking with a client from New York City who is a small business owner and talked about the rioters coming down the street, down Madison Avenue, breaking windows on all of the high fashion district and all of the restaurants and that sort of thing, and that their neighboring small business owner next to them went out and tried to appeal to them to please stop. We said, we're not big corporations here. This is our family's business, and got beaten up by the crowds and the police who they appealed to. They were standing. There were numerous police cars and police there, and the person appealed to them, please make them stop, and the policeman turned and spoke sharply to the person and said, we're under orders to stand down. Just get out of our way. And so if you've got the local police under orders to allow the rioters to cause rampant destruction of property, it seems like it automatically leads to that next step of escalation. It's like then it paves the pathway for bringing in more authoritarian force to deal with the problem. You're saying that this is a pattern. Folks, we have to see that this pattern is a natural progression. You talked about that in your article. Can you kind of walk us down what the steps are in that pattern?
Well, the steps are, well, get back. In Charlottesville in August 2017, early and late July, the police asked to meet with me in Charlottesville. I met with them. And that was, I didn't know much about Antifa at the time. I knew there was an Antifa. I knew a little bit about Antifa. That's before all this broke open. And maybe we've talked about this on your program, but they wanted to get my advice, and I was talking to them, and I told them to set up real strong barriers so people wouldn't be able to riot. I told the police chief refused to meet with me. I told the police chief should give a speech beforehand about keeping peace, and order and like that. They didn't do any of that. They basically, but I was really surprised when the police in the room, some of them put their head down. I said, we were talking. I said, well, what are you going to do? And they said, we're really nervous and a bit afraid. And I said, what? And they said, Antifa. And I went, wait a minute here. And I looked around the room. They have guns, tasers. One of them had a Kelvar vest on. And I went, you're afraid of these people? What is the deal here? And that was an early sign. They were telling me they were going to step down. No one knew that at the time, and they did. There was a long report, and I've written about it in the article we're talking about, This is America, on our website. They just stepped down and let people get to beat the crap out of one another and caused all this violence and stuff. Where they could have stopped that day, we probably wouldn't have seen what happened in Minneapolis if they would have done their job there. It set a pattern. So, what I'm seeing is that the federal government has been getting ready for a long time for this. They're ready. Like I say, they have the forces. They have the SWAT team raids around the country. And people say, well, we're talking about defunding the police. I've had police tell me, John, I already have a warehouse full of MRAPs. They're tanks on wheels. Snipers, rifle, grenade launchers. They go down the list. I got all that stuff already. And during all the riots in March under the CARES Act, the police were given $2 billion for more equipment. People do your little research. They were funding the police at that time. So there are a lot of little sneaky, rotten things that people in Washington, D.C. do. And this is what we're seeing happening today. But they've been planning for this for years. They're ready to go. I mean, with 80,000 SWAT team raids occurring now, 80% of those SWAT team raids used to be for mere warrant service where police are knocking on the door. Now they can do doors and shoot them. Google now, we find out, is giving over all kinds of information to the police. I knew that a long time ago. I just assumed that. But we just found about that recently. And diffusion centers. Fusion centers, if people knew what fusion centers are, all over the country. There are big spy networks where the military, the FBI, Department of Homeland Security, and they watch people. Google's giving information over them. And here's the thing. They have terrorism liaison officers, ministers, rabbis, school teachers, firefighters, people in the community that they train secretly to go around the neighborhood and watch you for suspicious activity, which can be taking a picture outside of someone's home, those kind of things with your cell phone, and you can get arrested. And all that information is given over to police, and they know if you have a weapon now or whatever. And people wonder, why are the police agitated a lot of times they come to someone's door? They have all that information on their phone. If you have a shotgun in your home, they're going to be agitated. So instead of knocking on your door, they're going to smash it down, which we're seeing. I mean, they're shooting people, killing up to 500 dogs a day. We live in a military state at this particular point in time. They can lock down this country anytime they want, and depending on how the media responds to it. But as Carl Bernstein told us, the media, a lot of the stuff in the media we see on television stuff is vetted by the CIA and the NSA. Carl Bernstein, Bernstein Woodward, very credible journalist. So we're in a hell of a mess. And the question is, to people always ask me how we can get out of this mess. The only thing that's going to get us out of this mess is get up off your butts, stop staring at people blabbing on TV about elections, get down to your local city council and take control of that. You can stop the SWAT team raids at the local level. You can send back the military equipment, folks. There's a lot of things you can do to change the country, but people say, well, what's the problem? We'll look in the mirror. You're not doing anything. I feel like a lone wolf sometimes on top of a ledge screaming. Folks, here it is. Here's the facts. And it's all facts. Here's the things that are happening. Get up, wake up. And if watching this program doesn't stir you a bit to do just a little research and get your butts up and get moving, you can change things. I've seen it change in some local communities, but most people, no. We're very, very lazy people. And with this virtual reality we're moving into, and here's the other thing. Google has announced by 2029, what they call the doctrine of singularity, they're going to be fused the human mind with artificial intelligence. In other words, AI is going to basically be running everything in our lives. You wonder why you go get so-called things on your phone, what you say and what you do. And can you say, well, how does an artificial intelligence creature view human beings? As data bits. They can be erased. Let me punch this button here. You are erased. That can happen. That's going to happen. You're going to wonder why someone's at your door, a cop, because you say the wrong word. If you go, oh, shoot, I hope I didn't do something wrong. I'm telling people, don't say the word shoot. Don't say bullet points. What's the bullet points in your speech? All those things are categorized: bullets, shooting. You're going to have the robots. Listen, in some states across the country, police are already using the robot dogs, going up to doors and checking things out. It's coming. Elon Musk said it. He said, I've been screaming. People will not realize it until the robots are walking down the street. They're coming. And he also called using artificial intelligence as summoning the devil. What do you mean by that? Well, you're going to have a creature that doesn't think morally or whether a human being should be protected. It's going to be thinking data. And hyped up people on whatever they are, the policemen, and shooting people through windows, which they're doing on a regular basis. Cases are around. Go to our website, you can see them. That's what we're going to be facing. We're facing a world that Orwell would be scratching his head and said, oh, I should have thought of the robotics. If you haven't seen the movie Blade Runner, take a watch, folks.
Blade Runner 2045. Yeah, it's a real sobering view of the near future. John, one of the things you mentioned about saying the wrong words, we all now who have smartphones have this speech-to-text convenience feature on our phone. I've been shocked and scandalized myself at the vocabulary that it interprets my speech to be sometimes. When I'm trying to say something, okay, I don't always have the best pronunciation or maybe have some background noise or whatever, but some of the phrases that it assumes I was trying to say, it's like, I would like it to take all those words out of its dictionary because I would never say any of those words in any communication I'm sending to somebody I know. So there can be room for significant and grievous error in those kind of things too.
Oh, yeah. Like Orwell said, he who controls the past controls the future. He who controls the future controls the present. And we're seeing that with history now. There are some professors coming out now saying they don't think history should be taught because it's racist. Whatever you're doing, removing historical monuments, whatever, it falls right into the plan. Someone obviously wants a bland kind of computer-like reality, and that's where we're moving, in my opinion. Yes. The colorful things of the past that I think are going to disappear. I think, and again, Minority Report, movies like that. Again, that's Philip K. Dick stuff, who wrote some really good stuff and saw what was coming. we are we're things that can be done away with. I mean, when a policeman can blow you away by mistake and they have qualified immunity, they go on leave, they get paid, and they come back and go work for somewhere else. What does that say to that policeman? Okay, I made a mistake. I just blew somebody away. If I do it again, same old thing. We're training people in our government to say, hey, it's nothing, just blow them away. You make a mistake, you make a mistake. And they're teaching the police, by the way, this worst case scenario. And I had a couple people who taught in the police academies talking about this, and I didn't like it. The worst case scenario theory they teach the policemen now, and that is everybody you approach is like an enemy combatant. They may be armed, whatever. If people have been shot for pulling out a cell phone, and the police have asked them, "You have a gun?" Okay. They worst case scenario, and the problem we see with the way the government's treating these armed agents, whether they're federal or local or whatever, with all this combat gear, the guns, the tasers, whatever, grenade launchers, is enemy combatants. That's the way they view us. But if you read the Constitution, this is what we go back to, and most people don't read it, they don't even know what's in the Bill of Rights, is that supposedly we, the people, that's how the Constitution starts, we're the government, we're the rulers, we're the masters. A policeman shouldn't go up and push you around. A government agent shouldn't talk to you like you're a dog on the phone or you go to an election booth. They should be going, yes, sir, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, whatever, if you can say those things to some people. They get irritated today if you say the wrong word to people. But the point is, they should be treating us with great respect because they're draining us dry of our money. And as things proceed, and I'm seeing this with a social reorganizing of society, I mean, little businesses are going out, the larger corporations are going to take over. The big corporations are making a lot of money during this COVID thing. I mean, Amazon, you go look at it. And this is the crazy thing. Amazon works with local police with their recognition devices on the doorbells. The FBI works with 1,400 corporations in sharing information about us. Google does the same thing. So what we're moving into is a total control society where we are seen as data bits. And that's the future. I don't see how we're going to turn it around.
One of the things that you mentioned in passing in the beginning was about people getting more active. You mentioned several steps to that. One is unplugging from this sort of almost addictive fixation on the official sources of entertainment and media and that sort of thing, because that's just programming. Then secondly, getting up and getting out and getting active and getting to know our neighbors. You mentioned, not seeing your neighbors around the neighborhood. We need to reconnect. And that can lead into then local actions such as speaking out at your city council or wherever. What about people collaborating in cooperative communities and forming actual networks of neighbors, sharing backyard grown vegetables and backyard chicken eggs and things like that? Basically finding out not only who people are, but they stand up for each other. And that leads on to my next question after that about what happened in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, when there was rumored or information that Antifa was going to come up there, and the citizens showed up en masse, heavily armed and collaboratively, and having cookouts on the street and basically saying, not in our town. So could you kind of take those two steps on how we can connect with our neighbors to reclaim that we, the people, spirit?
Well, first of all, you're going to have to get down and make yourself public at public meetings. Finding out what your city council is doing. I mean, how many SWAT team raids are occurring in your community? What type of equipment do they have? Do you really want to militarize police? What did George Washington say? Don't have a standing army on American soil. They went through it because they'll crash through your door in the middle of the night. Getting very, very visible. And I've told people this. Starts what I call civil liberties oversight committees. And some people can do it by phone. Just get together on your phones, you get together in groups, get together with some beer and some barbecue, sit down and talk about what you can do to make our Constitution survive, because it's not going to survive very long. The government ignores it continually. They don't really give a damn about the Constitution. That to them is an impediment. So that's one reason why you don't see the public schools teach the Bill of Rights. Kids don't know it. Adults don't know it. I talk to policemen who can't tell me basically what's in the Fourth Amendment. I talk to lawyers that can't tell me, give me the 5 freedoms in the First Amendment. It's That's what we want to do. We give away Bill of Rights pamphlets, by the way, and here's one that's right there. It goes through the Bill of Rights. It's only 462 words. Teach your kids in the home your rights. And then get together your neighbors. Say, let's get a phone conference every 2 weeks and let's talk about what's going on in our committee, our town, and get our committee committed to going down there and slowing some of this stuff down. You can do it, but you have to do it. And one thing, the mainstream media we see, basically when I'm watching, I don't watch TV at all. I very seldom see some of the mainstream media news. When I see it, it looks so plastic. And when I see these advisors they have on there giving advice and they're talking, and I look at their title, former NSA, whatever, former CIA, former FBI, I'm going, wait a minute. These are not journalists. This is the government sitting and pretending they're giving us news. These are people. And I've talked to these people, by the way, former agents that tell me the same thing. We're supposed to what? What did James Madison say? We ought to mistrust all those in power. Why would you trust some blabbing head on TV who's reading from a teleprompter? Why would you trust some politician who's reading from a teleprompter when he gives a speech? He can't talk off the cuff. You know, I mean, listen, I don't care who you vote for, Biden, Trump, or whatever. I mean, both of them have trouble answering questions, deep questions. They would think what we're talking about today, they'd go, what is this? Their heads would be going zooming. So that's who you think you're running the country, and they don't run the country, folks. The Princeton study, which I've written about, you go to our website and read about it. Princeton, Northwestern University did a detailed study of all the laws and stuff passed for 20 years in Washington, D.C., and they came to the conclusion that Washington, D.C. is run by an oligarchy, a moneyed elite. It's run by money, 585 billionaires. That's who runs Washington, D.C., and they don't give a damn about the average citizen. They just want your money, folks.
So, John, back to that pattern that people need to watch out for, because generally things kind of build like a snowball, and they usually start with a first small step, and that's usually where you can nip it in the bud. You talked about that pattern that we fall into, where it's that you said civil discontent leads to civil unrest, which leads to protest and counter-protest, and what should be an exercise in peacefully disagreement turns ugly, and then looting and violence and intimidation tactics and rioting is introduced, and all of a sudden you've got tension rise, violence escalates, federal armies move in, and the same pattern playing out. How can we nip that in the beginning and refuse to fall into that trap? Because it really is a trap. And you mentioned Martin Luther King Jr. warning us about that. But what is a way that people can catch that early on so that before it escalates?
Well, again, what the problem is that people aren't involved at all. They're not involved. So this is going to move forward. The people sitting on the city council, if you think just voting for that person and they're going to go represent you, you're nuts. A lot of people on city council and stuff, they're taken out to dinner by corporations, they're bought by corporations, stuff like that. We ought to mistrust all those in power, James Madison, who wrote the Bill of Rights. So the question is, and here's the key, the only way we're going to stop this is be cognizant of what's going on in your government. How are your city council people voting in your local community? You're going to have to get down there and take the time to go down to the city council meeting. And you might get thrown out for being a rebel, but a rebel is a good thing, and that's one thing the society doesn't want. But if you get the listen, as I've often said, one guy with a sign at a city council meeting in protest is considered a weirdo. Three with the same sign is considered a movement. They're afraid of that. So get together, large groups, and I'll guarantee you this, and I've seen it happen in some communities, when they think that there's a movement coming and they might lose their money or whatever, these people, or their vote or their position on their little government council or whatever, you'll get a response for them. And that's all you got to do. I mean, it's going to be very difficult, though. The thing that we have to understand here, and I'll say it again, you don't know who's directing a lot of this stuff in the protests. We just don't know. All I know in the past, the government's done a good job of manipulating those things very, very well. And here's another thing you have to be cognizant of. If you're really effective in what you do, you're going to get opposed. Someone like Martin Luther King, he was planning on basically shutting Washington, D.C. down. He basically said it. He trained marshals, by the way, in nonviolence, and they had to do what he said. When he got a hollow point bullet through his head, John F. Kennedy, who said he was going to take the CIA and toss it to the wind and tear it up and throw it in the wind, got a hollow point bullet through his head. Hollow point bullets are what government use. They're the ones that have them. I'm a former infantry officer. We weren't allowed to use hollow point bullets. They were considered illegal. But the Department of Homeland Security now has ordered and now has 1.6 million at least hollow point bullets for their use in their federal agents. So you're going to get opposed. But I would say this, as you end your life, do you want to go out watching some blabbing head, or would you want to go out maybe in trouble for taking a stand for freedom and for your children? If you care about your grandchildren, your children, you get up off your butts and do something. If you don't care, you're not going to do anything. And it's going to be your fault. Don't point at somebody else like me who gets out there and fight and may appear to be a radical, which I get all the time, complaints. At least I'm doing something. You don't like it, but I'm fighting for you folks.
John, if people want to get a hold of that pamphlet that you held up about the amendment rights, can they get that directly from Rutherford.org, or is there?
Go to Rutherford.org, sign up to get our newsletters and our bulletins and stuff, which we put out a lot, and go to our website, and you'll see we put a lot of stuff up there. The idea, and I always say this, education precedes action. Quit being lazy, people. Get educated, and you can take some action.
Thank you, John, founder and president of Rutherford.org, the Rutherford Institute. We're going to put a link to your article that you posted on our description of this video so people can just follow it there. Also a link to Rutherford.org so they can get signed up get a free copy of that pamphlet that reminds us what we haven't been taught about what our constitutional rights are. Thank you for joining us, John, this time.
Thank you, sir.
If you've decided that now is the right time for you to protect your family's financial future by acquiring physical precious metals, gold and silver, I'm delighted to let you know that I have now become a licensed dealer's representative for Miles Franklin, one of the oldest and most trusted names in bullion dealerships. And we can provide you with physical delivery to your personal possession or to professional vault storage or precious metals IRAs. Just email me at libertyandfinance@protonmail.com, and please include your name and phone number in your email to libertyandfinance@protonmail.com. We'll get right back with you and find out how to best meet your needs so that you can either begin or increase your acquisition of physical precious metals now and protect your family's future starting today.